Peter Schweizer book, and we'll have Peter here for some time on Friday. He says in 2004, current Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and his wife, current U.S. Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao, this is written by Larry Getlin referring to his book, Schweizer's book, had an average net worth of $3.1 million. Okay, that's 13, 14 years ago. But 10 years later, in 2014, that number had increased to somewhere between 9.2 million and 36.5 million. So they went from 3.1 to between 9.2 and 36.5. How did they do that? One source of the windfall, according to a new book from Schweizer, was a 2008 gift from Chow's father, James Chow, for somewhere between 5 and 25 million. But this gift could be seen as more than just a gift. It may have been acquired, according to Schweizer, thanks to the couple's fealty to China, the source of the Chow family fortune. And that fealty may have occurred at the expense of the nation they had pledged to serve. Secret Empires, this new book, details myriad examples of corruption from members of both political parties. Rather than focusing on direct forms of corruption, such as bribes, Schweizer hones in on more indirect graft of the modern era. Rather than risk their careers taking bribes for potential minuscule rewards, Schweizer points out how today's politicians are savvier, engaging in what he calls corruption by proxy. While politicians and their spouses are often subject to rigid regulations on what gifts they can accept and what sort of businesses they can conduct, others around them, like their friends or children, have no obstacles. And you just saw that with Biden and Kerry. So while a politician can theoretically wind up in prison for accepting $10,000 for doling out favors, establishing overseas connections that could land your children multi-million-dollar deals is harder to detect and often legal. Foreign governments and oligarchs like this form of corruption because it gives them private and unfettered gateways to the corridors of Washington power, Schweizer writes. Foreign entities cannot legally make campaign contributions, so using this approach creates an alternative way to curry favor and influence America's political leaders. Simply camouflaging these transactions as business agreements provides another shield of plausible deniability. Now, as Schweizer tells it in his book, Elaine Chao, the Chao family, remember she's married to McConnell. The Chao family fortune derives from the Foremost Group. Notice they set up all these institutions. The Foremost Group, a shipping company that Chinese native James Chao, her father, and a classmate of former Chinese President Jiang Zemin at Jiaotong University, founded in New York in 1964. So he founds this Foremost Group in New York in 1964. Chao remains Foremost's chairman today, and his daughters Angela and Christine are the company's deputy chairwoman and general counsel, respectively. Elaine Chao worked there in the 1970s and has been quoted as saying, "Shipping is our family tradition." Now, the success of Foremost, this company, is largely due to its close ties to the Chinese government, in particular the China State Shipbuilding Corporation, a corporation with which Foremost has done large volumes of business. Now, this company, the Chinese State Shipping Corporation, the state-run company by the Chinese government, or the CSSC, Schweizer writes, is a state-owned defense conglomerate at the heart of the Chinese government's military-industrial complex. The main goal of this Chinese company is to strengthen the Chinese military. Now, James and Angela Chao have both sat on the board of a CSSC, this Chinese government company, off of a offshoot of that company. They've sat on the board. While Foremost, the Chao company, is an American company, their ships have been constructed by Chinese government shipyards, and some of their construction financed by the Chinese government, he writes. He says, in addition, their crews are largely Chinese, despite U.S. Transportation Secretary and company founders Elaine Chao having once said that ships crewed by Americans are a vital part of our national security. Given all this, it's worth noting how both Mitch McConnell and Elaine Chao in their roles as high-ranking U.S. officials, have personally interacted with and then gone considerably soft on China since their 1993 wedding. When Senator McConnell, who took hardline positions against China prior to his marriage, met with high-ranking Chinese officials in 1994, it was not in his capacity as a senator, but via a personal invitation from the CSSC Chinese company arranged by James Chow, Elaine's father. McConnell met with Zemin, then the country's president, and Vice Premier Li Langquing. After this meeting, McConnell, quote, would increasingly avoid public criticism of China, unquote, and more meetings like it would follow in the years to come. Schweizer writes, as the Chows and the Chinese government went into business together, the Chows McConnells tied their economic fate to the good fortunes of Beijing. Were McConnell to critique Beijing aggressively or support policies damaging to Chinese interests, Beijing would severely damage the family's economic fortunes. In the ensuing years, is this boring, everybody? Is this boring you, Mr. Producer? I think it's stunning, absolutely shocking and disgusting. In the ensuing years, McConnell has loudly defended China in the actions against Hong Kong and Taiwan, even claiming that the United States needed to be ambiguous as to whether we would come to the defense of Taiwan if attacked by China. When the late Senator Jesse Helms introduced the Taiwan Security Enhancement Act, pledging support for Taiwanese independence in 1999, it had 21 co-sponsors and heavy Republican support, but McConnell was not on the list. When Congress required China to document annual progress on human rights in order to maintain its trade status in the aftermath of the Tiananmen Square massacre, ditching the requirements became a priority for the country. In 2000, McConnell co-sponsored S-2277, which would do just that. McConnell also fought attempts to punish China for vigorously undervaluing its currency, a tactic that led to Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid to invoke the nuclear option, changing Senate rules on voting. The bill passed 63-35 with McConnell voting against. Now, Elaine Chao has also done her part to support her ancestral home. When she served as Secretary of Labor under George W. Bush, her department resisted efforts to, quote, call out the Chinese government over its workers' rights practices, as Schweizer writes. When a petition was filed against China on the subject of workers' rights, based on the U.S. Trade Act of 1974, Chow opposed it. After a bipartisan congressional report citing Chinese espionage against the U.S. circulated in 2000, Chow, Schweizer writes, was critical of the report, making clear she in no way agreed with its findings, and Schweizer writes, dismissing the idea that China could pose any threat to the United States. So this dishonest double-dealing works on both sides of the political aisle. And it goes on into other individuals and other matters as well. The Bidens, the Kerrys, McConnells, the Chows. All this going on in the shadows. All this going on behind our backs. These are supposed to be public officials. They and their families are getting filthy rich.